California normally hasn't played a very
important
role in Republican presidential primaries. Do you expect that to be the case this time around, or what?
You never know. One of the things that the party has tried to do is to get away from a process that was so front-loaded, so early, and so compressed. And if, in fact, they succeed, talking about the National Party, in getting the process to start later and to have more time in between, then the process could last a lot longer. And I remember years when California played a huge role, and it was the last set of primaries in the United States. If I remember, California, Ohio, and New Jersey used to go the first Tuesday in June. So you can't assume that just because in the compressed front-loaded process, California didn't have much role, because we're at least attempting to try to have a new process.
Governor, on the path to citizenship issue, is your position that until the borders are closed, you cannot support a path to citizenship?
I don't think there should be any attempt at overall immigration reform until the borders closed. Now, there's one thing there's one thing that's not, in my mind, part of the greater, sort of broader immigration reform, and that's H-1B visas. We ought to have a whole lot more H-1B visas in the United States. It is silly for us to take very, very bright young people from other countries that come here to go to school, and they want to get great education, PhDs, whatever, and then we make them go home. So we ought to make it easy for them to stay here, because, as I'll talk about tonight, we're in a global battle for talent in the United States, as well as a global battle for capital. And so we need to do everything we can do to be the place where all the best talent in the world wants to come, and they want to come here now. Just too many of them won't let them study.
What about people that are housekeepers?
Do you have any thoughts on Governor Brown's plan to close the $26 billion deficit, which includes a mix of spending cuts and tax extension of?
I don't know enough about it to comment.
What about the promotion of taxes?
Usually, I don't talk a lot about things I don't know about. Usually.
Well, Republicans here are trying to get reforms such as pension reforms, regulatory reforms, and others in exchange for maybe a vote on tax extensions. Is there a climate now for these kinds of reforms, and would you think it?
Well, certainly are across the United States. I can't speak for California, but my state doesn't have collective bargaining. We're one of 24 states that either doesn't allow or limits collective bargaining. The federal government doesn't allow collective bargaining. Federal employees have no right to bargain for their wages, for their health benefits, for their pension benefits. So is there a move in the United States for reform in this area? Yeah, absolutely. It's going on from coast to coast.
Sorry.
Hey, Barbour, I'm the only person standing in this room right now that, like you, is an Ole Miss rebel.
Amen.
Plus a 70. I said
land of beautiful women.
You would know, thank you very much. I said you would know me because I have on Go to Hell LSU button, the only person in the room. Now, is your campaign slogan going to be save the country, change the president?
Well, I'm not going to make a decision about running for president until the end of April.
Are you ready?
I'm seriously thinking about it, but I'm not going to make a decision until the end of April. I'm not being cold.
We'll be waiting for your decision in April. Thank you.
What are some of the factors that are going to weigh into it?
Well, there's just a wide variety of factors, personal factors, family factors. It's not, doesn't matter to me who else decides to run. Most of these people are friends of mine, some of them very close friends of mine, but that won't be a factor. But there are just a variety of factors. I want to finish my legislature, get the budget done, get redistricting done, or get the legislative process and redistricting done.
You're in one of the most Democratic-controlled states in the country. Every statewide office is Democratic-controlled. Any advice on how Republicans here can win back some more control of power, come back?
In 1968, I dropped out of college my senior year, and I ran 30 counties in the presidential campaign for Richard Nixon, the Republican candidate. First time I ever saw a poll, 6% of the people in Mississippi consider themselves Republicans. Needless to say, I've taken the long-term view. If you're a Republican in Mississippi in 1968, Today we have 2 Republican United States senators, 7 out of 8 of our statewide officials, elected officials, are Republicans. 3 out of 4 members of the House, we have a Republican majority in the Senate. So I've seen change in my state, and I suspect we'll see change in this state. When I came out here the first time as RNC chairman in 1993, all of the guys like you said, we are. Not going to help Pete Wilson, are you? I mean, he doesn't have a change. Y'all write him off. And I said, no, we're not going to write him off. We think he's a great governor. We're going to support him. And he ended up winning by, I don't know, double digits yesterday.
Hi, I actually knew you way back when I was working at the basement of the RNC back in the 90s. So,
All right. Were you a fast tracker?
No, basically I stayed there and I entered on the Hill. But my question is, I'm a local activist here in California, plus I have my own blog. Basically, one of the factors I've discussed with a lot of activists is flipping LA, investing a lot of money into the LA region. Would you, if you're running for president, or even if you're supporting the person who does run, if you choose not to, would you promote the idea of spending a lot of party funds within Los Angeles?
You know, Stu Spencer talked to me about the same thing last year. I think he's one of the smartest political guys I know, so I would have to consider anything that you asked me about.
Would you like to see more drilling for oil off the coast of California?
Well, I'd like to see more drilling for oil in the Gulf of Mexico.
About
30% of the oil in the producing United States last year, or year before last, came out of the Gulf of Mexico. Now we have a permatorium on the Gulf of Mexico drilling. The administration, now that gasoline is shot up, is saying, oh, well, we've given 2 permits in the last 2 weeks. Well, if you look at the fine print, the 2 permits are not for new wells to be drilled. They're permits to resume drilling on wells that had already been started more than a year ago. So I don't know enough about it here. What I do know about is the Gulf, because we have been drilling oil wells in the Gulf of Mexico for 50 years, 31,000 oil wells. And the United States depends on that production. A lot of people in my part of the country worry about the loss of jobs. Well, I do too, but more than that, I worry about how when we reduce the amount of petroleum we produce in the United States, it makes us more reliant on foreign oil. And every president since 1973 has had a policy to say to try to make us less dependent on foreign oil. So stopping drilling in the Gulf, taking lands off line in Alaska, fighting the bringing in of tar sands produced oil in Canada, all of these things are contrary to a country that needs more American energy, and that's what our policy should be, more American energy. So let me get the other people a chance.
Given what's happened in Japan, have you had any change in your position on nuclear power?
No.
Governor? I was just going to say, Frank Luntz was speaking today at the luncheon, and just by applause in the room, he asked, how many people were for this particular hopeful candidate and so on. And I noticed a lot, Tim Puente, Mitch Daniels, yourself, and Chris Christie also got a real big cheer. Why do you think so many governors may run this time as opposed to senators and whatnot last election cycle?
Well, look at our party. When I was chairman in the 90s, the real leaders of our party were governors. Tommy Thompson, John Engler, Mike Levitt, Carol Campbell, Pete Wilson, Bill Weld. And I think you see the same thing today. The change in America, the policies that are successful and are contrary to Obama's policies are being put in place by Republican governors, including the governors that you talked about. And that's what this election is going to be about. It's going to be about public policy. It isn't going to be about candidates' hopes and aspirations and intentions. It's going to be about getting results. And I think the American people look at these governors and they see people who get results. And that's what we need, is results.
Governor, thank you all.
Good to see you.